All right, so I'm back with Ethan Buchman, the co-founder of Cosmos, the president of the ICF, and the CEO of Informal. I said that like 4 times now. That's because we did 4 videos. That's the 4th one. I invite you to check the first 3. They are all on our YouTube channel. We talked about AIB, we talked about the ICF, and we did the first video on Informal to explain a little bit about the spin-off and the spin-out of the ICF. And today we want to talk about what we work on. Essentially, we want to talk about the things that we do a lot in the interchain and in the Cosmos ecosystem, but we don't communicate too much. Maybe Ethan can explain why we haven't been communicating too much. But that's kind of our attempt to fix that and talk about what we've done over the last 3 years. Informal was founded in 2020. Now it's 2023. It's been 3 years. Let's see with Ethan what we work on. So Ethan, first maybe let me ask you please answer the question about why we don't communicate too much.
I think we do communicate, maybe not as much as some others or people would like. I mean, we're definitely more quiet. We operate a little bit more slowly and methodically. I think there's a lot of people in the space that take a kind of move fast and break things and just slinging crap at the wall and trying to see what sticks. And yeah, there's a lot of fun and a lot of drama, and we don't really want to play that game. We want to play a different game. We want to work as professionals. We want to work with respect for others and really work together and lift people up. And so that requires us to go a little bit more smoothly, slowly, a little bit more thoughtfully about things. And that's come a little bit, I guess, to a detriment because it means we haven't communicated as much as we should have, and we've got there's always kind of a lot going on in the ecosystem, and we're often being called on to support other teams or help with something here or there, and so we don't want to air dirty laundry all the time, and we just want to be professional about how we approach things. And so for a while now we've been planning to put together these videos, put together a story about our history, and start publishing more regularly about the hub team and what they're working on, and more generally what we're working on, and doing our own kind of form of transparency reporting about what we're getting from the ICF. And so all that's been in the works for a while, and it's sort of coming to fruition with these videos finally. So we're excited to put it out. But just in general, we think it's time to tone down the drama per second in this ecosystem and try to act a little bit more professionally and respectfully with each other. And I think there's a lot more ways we can be constructive and uplifting and and really spread the love. And so we're trying to lead by example on that front. And yeah,
let's do that. Let's start today. So at a very high level, very high level, over the last 3 years, what did Informal work on? Then obviously we can dive deeper into each of these scopes. But first, what would you say top 3, top 5 things we do at Informal?
Yeah, sure. So we worked on a lot of things. I mean, when we first spun out from the ICF, there were three broad categories of things we were working on. So 1 is Tenerment, 2 is IBC, and then 3 is formal methods. And so, of course, we were doing formal methods work across Tenerment and IBC, writing specifications, doing verification. But we were also implementing both Tenerment and IBC in Rust. That was part of our initial work for the ICF. And we were building out a new formal methods tool called Applicability, sort of a formal methods engine that's powering a lot of the work we do at Informal for writing specifications, for doing verification, but also for generating tests that you can run against real software. So we can get into all of that. But that's where we started. Kind of over the years, we were asked to increase our scope, to work on more things. There were other teams working on things and wanted our help, or needed us to step up to other parts of the Cosmos stack. And so we would come to work on Tenerment and Go as well. We'd come to work on the Cosmos Hub. We were asked to build, ultimately to build the interchain security team and play a leading role in shipping that and in reconstituting sort of development velocity around the hub. And one of the other things we started to work on in 2022 is something we call collaborative finance. We had a little bit of funding for that in 2022 from the ICF. That's really about bringing Cosmos to the real world and trying to have real world impact with the Cosmos technology. And again, that's something we can get into in a lot more detail. But at a high level, Tenerment, of course, that's now Comet, IBC, formal methods, Cosmos Hub. Basically every kind of part of the stack. So yeah.
Right. So I think you mentioned Tenerment and IBC first. I think we should actually start with the formal verification and Applicability, because that's something that we used several times on several different scopes. And so maybe let's define that. You also said in the last video, formal work, specification, Applicability, Atomcraft, like all these things are obviously part of the same team. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that, since some people must be extremely confused at the moment.
Yeah. So, in the last video, we talked a little bit about formal methods and what it's good for. Really, this is about, we're really motivated to increase the quality standards of software engineering as a discipline and to help engineers better understand their protocols, write more correct software, make it easier to understand the software they're building, and also make it easier to test it, right? And we believe the key to all of that is better tooling for writing specifications, right? So unlike many other engineering disciplines where there's sort of rigorous approaches to specifying your system and analyzing it before you actually start building it, that's really lacking in software engineering. I mean, there are efforts to write documentation and to write specs in English and use pseudocode, and there are a number of formal methods, formal specification languages out there. For instance, TLA Plus is a very popular one that we've been using, but there's still a lot. It leaves a lot wanting in terms of developer experience and ease of use and accessibility. And so that's something we've been really focused on, is basically making the formal methods tooling more accessible to just regular engineers so that they can use it as part of their toolkit, improve their understanding of their protocols, their architecture of their software, and find bugs kind of upfront and just sort of improve the quality of all the engineering work they're doing. And so Apalache is really the engine that allows us to do that. Draws on, we'll have to do a whole video on Apalache to really get into the details, but it's essentially to high level, if I'll just throw out the words, it's a symbolic model checking engine for TLA Plus, but it's very powerful. It allows us to do a lot of verification that wasn't possible before Apalache, and it allows us to build better specification languages. So we have a language now called Quint that's for specifying systems, that was designed to delight engineers, and we're getting some great feedback from some engineers who've never really done formal methods before, and they're loving Quint. So you should check that out. But the goal is really to make it easier to specify protocols, understand them, and ultimately test the software that implements them. That's a key piece that's often missing from formal methods. People think, oh, it's just some abstract academic thing. Like, we're really trying to industrialize it, to ground it in real world engineering, make it easier to go from a formal spec that you can verify and understand to actual real tests of real software. And over the years, we've been able to do that in a number of cases. We've been using Apalache to test Tenerment and IBC and other sort of parts of the stack.
I think one great way to understand what Apalache is basically a way to find bugs without even reading code, right? Like that's a great way to think about it. It's like you essentially outsource the process of running these tests and finding and thinking about these tests from a human to a computer, and that's I think that's
it's very powerful, because if you write a high level specification of a system, Apalache can generate traces that you can turn into tests. And so without even reading code, you can write tests for it that start to shake out, different extreme kind of edge cases. And so it's very powerful. It's like, you can think of it as like a super advanced fuzzer or simulation engine that comes with a lot of sort of power behind it. Yeah.
Right. So behind that works, let's say we can categorize that into the formal verification work or formal method work. We have Apalache, we have Quint, the new language. We'll link all that in the show notes for the engineers, the Cosmos engineers that want to check that out. We actually want people to check that out as much as possible. That's something that is open source, and we want people to use. And so maybe that's a nice transition into the work we did on Tenerment, now Comet, because I know Apalache has been used for shaking out bugs for Tenerment and Comet. And so that would be my next question. Like, what did we, not just on the auditing side, what did we work on as part of the Tenerment project? And that is now, everyone knows, the Comet project.
Yeah, we worked on a lot of things on Comet or Tenerment over the years. Of course, back when I was at All in Bits, I was the lead developer of Tenerment, built a lot of the team there. Jarko, who's now our CTO, was played a big role early on in Tenerment and really fleshing out the protocol. And Tenerment's really at the heart of so much of what was done with Cosmos and so much of the philosophy. Tenerment powers so many of the Cosmos blockchains. Of course, Cosmos aspires to be bigger than just Tenerment or Comet now. We're talking about history, so I'll try to use Tenerment when I'm referring to the past, and Comet when I'm referring to the present and beyond. But Tenerment was really the first kind of production grade Byzantine fault tolerant consensus engine. It was the first to really prove that you could use classic BFT consensus in a sort of adversarial context at internet scale to power blockchains and cryptocurrency. So and a lot of what made Tenerment possible, getting into production and really shaking out all these issues, was the work that Jarko and I had done early on, and we had started building, of course, with others at we built a team at All in Bits, but we also started building a team at the ICF of protocol engineers, verification engineers, who could also really understand very deeply the core sort of protocols and elements of Tenerment, what made it all work, and how it's all possible. And so we took a lot of that past expertise with us into Informal, and it was sort of part of what we were doing at Informal. Of course, as I mentioned in a past video, it was sort of challenging early on to once we were outside of All in Bits, to collaborate with the Go team at All in Bits. And so we were sort of encouraged and motivated to focus more on specifications and verification and building in Rust. And so that's a lot of what we started doing when we kicked off Informal, was really writing specs for different parts of Tenerment and starting to verify properties to really prove kind of mathematically that Tenerment worked the way you expected it to, and started implementing parts of it in Rust.
And so specifically Rust, I know that has been a big part. I think that project in Rust has been like somewhat imposed. Maybe you can explain why that was the case.
Yeah. So initially the ambition was to build an entire Tenerment from scratch in Rust, like a complete implementation. ultimately that would be paused. Over time. It was sort of decided by other stakeholders in the ecosystem, the ICF, and even us internally, that it wasn't really a top priority to work on an implementation in Rust. There was there was a lot of fallout from All in Bits in 2020. The core Tenerment team actually left All in Bits, and they ended up at a subsidiary of the foundation called Interchain GmbH. So that's a whole other story. But they needed additional support and really wanted some support and help from Informal, and so Informal started building a team for Tenerment and Go, and started working closely with the team at Interchain GmbH. Ultimately, in 2022, Interchain GmbH would sort of have some issues, and so it was ultimately decided for the sort of leadership of the Tenerment project to move to Informal. And Informal had already been building a team over the prior year or so, and was happy to take on continued sort of stewardship of Tenerment, and of course had to lead us through the rebrand into Comment. So now it's Comment, but we have a really strong team there, and there's a lot of different pieces we sort of worked on Tenerment and Go over the years. There were also parts of Tenerment and Rust that did get built and that are actually in production today.
And so, talking about formal verification and Tenerment, I know we did a bunch of work using both actually. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, so the formal methods expertise has been extremely useful for working on Tenerment and now working on Comet. I mean, early on, one of the first things we started working on in 2020, really before we started, we didn't do that much work towards a Tenerment full node before it was put on hold. But we did start working early on the Tenerment Light client, and the Tenerment Light client is really the core of the security model of IBC, at least for IBC between Tenerment chains. It's the protocol that allows Tenerment chains to securely interact and read each other's consensus state. And there's a lot of subtlety in the security model of the Light client. And so our team actually started doing a lot of sort of protocol design work around it, and surfaced, a lot of kind of early misunderstandings and difficult to reason about sort of edge cases and attacks on the Light client, and sort of classified that and built a little taxonomy, and really formalized user expertise to really formalize the understanding that made it possible to properly, understand the protocol, implement it correctly, deal with these different edge cases. We ultimately published a paper about that, about the Tenerment Light clients. You can read about that, where we sort of lay out the formal model kind of clearly, and we were able to use our some of our Appalachi and our formal specification work to really help reason about all that. And so that was really valuable. I think another important place has been ABCI++. So that's a major change that's coming to Comet. One of the biggest upgrades in the history of this project. That's really going to unlock incredible new powers for blockchain application developers, allow them to sort of interact more directly with the consensus. And there's a long history at ABCI++. Like I remember even back in like 2019 at the Interchain conversations, like you had Dave and Sunny, who were core Cosmos devs and co-founded Osmosis later. They were coming up with ideas for how to expand the ABCI interface to give application developers more power to use like threshold cryptography and to do more advanced kind of interesting things. But it was really the Informal team starting in 2021 and 2022 that really started to help kind of specify ABCI++ and get clear about all the kind of low level details and ensuring correctness and all that sort of stuff, and ultimately implementing it. I mean, that was a big thing our team worked on throughout 2022, especially was implementing ABCI 2.0 or plus depending on who you ask, and that's coming together now in the latest Comet releases. So it's really exciting to have been sort of to see, I've seen that through from the beginning, and for our formal methods expertise to have played such a role in detailing all that and opening up these new horizons for application developers. So we've been involved in Tenerment sort of across the board. We've also especially over the last year, we put a lot of effort into quality assurance for Tenerment. There were some challenges in the past with testing and integrations around the Tenerment software, and so especially with some of the later more recent Comet releases, the quality assurance framework has been completely upgraded, and so we've been really working to restore development velocity around Tenerment and really reposition it as sort of industry leader in Byzantine fault tolerance. So very excited about all that.
I don't think there's a single day that goes by where someone doesn't ask about ABCI++ and how is that going and how is that coming along. I think
everyone's very excited. Yeah.
Skip and DYDX and all these guys, like they kind of need that to move forward, and they're really like in touch with the development there.
Yeah. The rebrand. I mean, the rebrand to Comet definitely slowed things down. That's for sure. We've had a bunch of challenges, but finally we're sort of through a lot of that, and development velocity is picking up again, and you should be expecting a lot from Comet this year. So yeah, a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, I think it speaks to the importance of the work that is being done here more than anything. Yeah. The thing that I want to ask also is the Light client work is obviously closely related to the work we did in IBC, and that's another like big vertical for Informal and big kind of work that we perform. So let's start with the history of IBC. Can you talk a little bit about that, how that came to fruition, how IBC was launched? I think there's a bit of a Stargate that you're going to mention here. And in general, how that shaped out.
Yeah. So IBC has a long history. Of course, it's first proposed kind of formally in the white paper, the Cosmos white paper in 2016. And, Ethan Fry wrote like a IBC paper, I think in 2017, detailing like an initial specification. And at some point, Chris Goes in 2018, a lot of this is all in bits, especially after the Cosmos Hub launched in 2019, sort of started to take a lead on really a really rigorous sort of protocol design process for IBC. That was really multi-stakeholders. There's a bunch of different entities involved. So at the time, we were still working at the ICF, and we sort of kicked off a meeting between folks from All in Bits and folks from the ICF and folks from Agoric. And we got everyone together in a room for a couple of days and really started fleshing out all the details of this IBC protocol. And the IBC is really the thing that makes Cosmos so unique. It's the thing that enables all these different blockchains to communicate. Extremely powerful general purpose interoperability protocol that is supposed to be the foundation for a new kind of internet, right? And internet of blockchains, this whole interchain we're talking about. And Tenerment plays a role in that as sort of the first consensus engine that IBC was built for. But a lot of the early designs was really around making sure that IBC would be general purpose, that it would work for more consensus engines than just Tenerment, and would be able to scale to many different kinds of applications in the future. And so folks that are at Informal today that were at the ICF back in 2019, like Anka and Yosef, were very involved in sort of early protocol design work and bringing their their kind of expertise and protocol design. And the Agoric folks, they've been designing protocols like this for decades, basically. Like I think even since before I was born. So not to age them, but they've been pushing this kind of secure distributed systems for a long time, and so they played a big role in what came to be the final design of IBC. In 2020, when Informal kind of got started, it was the entire ecosystem was working towards, the hub was launched, and we were all working towards the launch of IBC, which would be part of what was being called the Stargate upgrade. And Informal was again mostly focused on Rust implementations, but also still fleshing out details of the protocol. And of course, the Tenerment Lite client was a key part of the software. And so working on the Tenerment Lite client in Rust, was a part of working on of IBC in Rust. And the Tenerment Lite client would be part of Hermes, which was the relayer we were developing. We were building modular and handle. So there are a lot of different pieces that had to come together to bring IBC to life.
So you just mentioned Hermes. I think that's one of the major things we do at Informal, one of the major products. What is Hermes and what does it do?
So Hermes is what's called an IBC relayer. So it's an off-chain process that can be run permissionlessly by any node, any operator. They can install and run Hermes. And Hermes is the thing that allows chains to actually talk to each other, right? So within each chain, within their application, there's what we call the IBC handlers, which actually handle the on-chain logic of IBC. But blockchains don't have network connections. They're kind of confined deterministic machines. And so you need some off-chain process to watch the blockchains and to allow them to communicate with each other. So Hermes, or the relayer, is what forms the link, the actual link between different blockchains. It listens for IBC events on one blockchain and it relays them as a transaction to the other blockchain. And so Hermes is the IBC relayer we built in Rust that we started building in 2020, and which played a critical role really in the launch of IBC when it went into production. When Hermes went into production in 2021 with the Osmosis launch and all the IBC traffic, the basically explosion in IBC activity that started with Osmosis. Hermes was right there playing a key role enabling all these IBC traffic to flow and continues to play a key role in the IBC ecosystem. Many operators are running Hermes today, and a huge amount of IBC traffic is carried by that Hermes software.
So protocol design, Hermes, audits, IBC and Rust. Is there anything else we missed?
On the IBC front, yeah, so we did do an audit in 2020 as part of the work we were doing for the ICF as well. We audited the IBC protocol and the implementation in Go. We found quite a few number of bugs at that point. We had been writing some specifications to sort of help support the audit. We were able to use Apalache to actually generate tests we found bugs that we only found because we were using Apalache. So that was quite rewarding to see the actual formal methods tools in action, finding bugs in real IBC by testing these more advanced test cases. So that was pretty awesome. Yeah. The development on IBC kind of got off to a slow start. There was a lot of turnover in the Go code. The build up to the Stargate upgrade there was dealing with a lot of technical debt. And so being sort of downstream from that, led to a lot of changes, and it was sort of challenging to get things up and running. But by the time Stargate launched and a lot of that stuff solidified, and we were able to play a big role in sort of working out the kinks in the IBC protocol and really expanding IBC to another language for the first time, right? We were able to make that happen, expanding it into Rust, and now enabling other chains who are building in Rust to connect over IBC using the IBC implementation we did in Rust. So you've got, the Nomic team is building the Bitcoin bridge using our IBC implementation. You've got the Anoma team, doing this privacy preserving exchanges and stuff using our IBC modules. And you've got other teams using the Tenerment light client we built in Rust. And so a lot of that software that, we started in 2020 would come to production over the years, and its adoption would continue to grow. So, and have a huge impact on expanding into Rust and the growth of the IBC ecosystem in general.
Right. I think formal verification, Tenerment, now Comet, IBC. I think the thing that we are most visible for, at least on Twitter, is probably the Cosmos Hub. So can you talk a little bit about that? Please keep like most of the meat of your answer for the Cosmos Hub video that we do.
Yeah, so we'll do a dedicated Cosmos Hub video, but we weren't really working much or at all on the Cosmos Hub initially. It wasn't part of our initial contract. I mean, it was initially, the expectation was that All in Bits would be leading development of the Cosmos Hub. That was always sort of the expectation, from the ICF's perspective and from others. Of course, there was a major fallout from All in Bits in early 2020, and it's taken a long time for the ecosystem to sort of recover from that. In some sense, it's still recovering, and there were a lot of challenges. We'll talk about this in detail in the Hub video. For the Cosmos Hub, for development around the Cosmos Hub, it never really found a home, and there was increasing requests and asks for Informal to help and to start building up a Cosmos Hub team. And so eventually by we had started working on, we've been working on IBC protocols and all that sort of stuff, and we were very motivated to work on interchain security. I think we'll talk about that in the Hub video, but we had started working on interchain security, at least at the protocol level, in 2021, but we didn't really have an engineering team. And towards the end of the year, the ICF was was like, hey, Informal, you should start building up the interchain security team and build this out and work with the Hub team that they were growing at Interchain GmbH. And so we started building an interchain security team, and really over 2022 really ramped up the growth of that team. Ultimately built out the entire interchain security system, which would, is going to enable the Cosmos Hub to extend its functionality in a way it's never been able to before. And, that just launched. So that's super exciting that, that we were able to see that to fruition. And, ultimately I mentioned the sort of challenges with Interchain GmbH and how a sort of stewardship of Tenerment and, moved to Informal, and, Informal led it through the rebrand into Comet. Well, a similar thing happened with the Cosmos Hub. So, the team that was at Interchain GmbH, they would end up in late 2022 or basically by 2023, moving over to Informal, and Informal would start to play a bigger role in sort of leading development for the Cosmos Hub. Still collaborating with all the other participants in the community and ecosystem contributors working on the Hub. But it's something that, especially over the last year or so, that's been an increasing focus for Informal. Even though when we started, we basically weren't supposed to be focusing on it at all. But this is how things change over time. There's new needs and capacities necessary, and we had a lot of expertise that we were able to sort of bring to the Cosmos Hub problem, and it seems like the Hub is much better off as a result. So we're excited to keep pushing the Hub forward and improving velocity and ushering it into this new era of interchain security where new consumer chains can come online and can start taking things into their own hands. So yeah, we're excited about all that.
I have a lot more questions for you on the Cosmos Hub. I'm going to keep them for later. We're not going to spoil that. So yeah, we're going to move on to another thing that we've been increasing focus on, and that's kind of your baby, right? Like that's Copai. Copai is kind of the thing that you talk the most about. Again, separate video for Copai. I think that's a whole topic in itself. Please don't go over the time limit here. but yeah, like, what's Copai, and what do you
So Thibaut keeps having to plead with me to keep my answers short because I just want to say so much. So we're going to break everything out into its own video. Over the years, the sort of intention for the ICF, let's say, was and for the Cosmos ecosystem, we founded Cosmos. The idea was really to say, okay, there's going to be this Cosmos Hub thing. It's going to bootstrap this larger Cosmos ecosystem thing, which is going to allow us to actually go after like real problems in the real world, in the sustainability of the monetary and financial system, right? And so we want to be able to work our way up to that. And given the state of where the development of the technology was, there was an effort from the ICF in sort of late 2021 to start supporting more impact oriented applications, and it started funding some other projects. And one of the things that it started funding was a little project at Informal that we started really only in 2022 that we call collaborative finance, which is an effort to really use the Cosmos technology to help support real world businesses, small, medium-sized businesses with their cash flow by basically taking advantage of patterns in the network of credit obligations. And so there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, I'm not going to say too much. I mean, the work in 2022 was really just getting started. We basically recruited some experts who had written a paper that sort of transformed the landscape of thinking about this problem. It's become very popular paper. We can put it in the show notes. But so we recruited them to Informal. They wanted to build something. They thought, Cosmos was the technology to use, and Informal was the place to build it. And so we got just a little bit of funding in 2022 to sort of start the sort of research side of that and open things up. And ultimately that's something that Informal will be mostly funding out of pocket moving forward. But we're really looking forward to releasing a lot more about in the near term. We've still got some research ongoing with other projects in the space and the ecosystem about bringing this technology to the real world. But it's something we'll be ramping up to really benefit businesses and people all over the world and make the really make the financial system a lot more sustainable. There's a lot to do there, and so that's the direction I'd like to see Cosmos move into now that all the software and everything is really maturing. Start to have some real world impact. So that's something we're very excited about.
Yeah, cool. So I think we covered like most of what we did in the last 3 years. Maybe you can summarize a little bit our business model. We have like different verticals. Some of them are obviously like a service business for the ICF. Some of them are shaping up to be like separate, product company that we're gonna spin off and like be more of a product company. Maybe you can briefly describe, the differences between the two and separate what is being financed by the ICF and what we do as a separate company.
Yeah. So starting in 2020, we spun out from the ICF. We got a small investment from them. We talked about in the last video, and we got these contracts to start working on Cosmos development and formal methods R&D. And that was that's occupied a lot of our time over the years is delivering on ICF contracts. Of course, they've expanded in scope. The team has grown to service additional work, both the Tenerment and Go team, now the Comet team, and Cosmos Hub, and all these things. But sort of separate from the ICF contract, and really starting in 2021, we started growing out two new independent business lines. That is our security audit business and our validator business, right? So on the security audit side, over the course of 2021, we started getting a lot of demand to do security audits, to bring our formal methods expertise and our sort of engineering quality to security audits and to reviewing other people's code and or finding bugs without having to review code, which we've been able to do a few times using some tricks. And so so that's been in a lot of demand, and it's been really exciting to see that grow. We've been able to help a lot of projects. Of course we've applied that expertise directly to core Cosmos projects, sort of on contract with the ICF, but we've also been engaged by a number of other projects across the ecosystem within Cosmos and outside Cosmos. I mean, there was a period where we were auditing Polkadot projects, and they wanted us to ramp up. Ultimately, there's been a few times in our history where we sort of had to put our business interests to the side to better support Cosmos. I mean, Cosmos has a long and somewhat troubled organizational story and history, and there have been a few times where we kind of paused our own business growth, and we ultimately started turning down some of those Polkadot projects and really just pushed pause on them so that we could focus more of our attention on core Cosmos development and helping there. And we also the other independent business line was the validator. So Ariane and I and Greg, one of our other Informal employees, had started the cephalopod equipment validator sort of back in 2019. It was always sort of an independent validator. It's sort of when Ariane and I were at the ICF and doing the delegation program, we exempted cephalopods, so it didn't get delegations on the hub from the ICF, and in 20, but it was really just something we were running on the side. And in 2021, Informal took a bet on the strategic bet on the validator, and sort of started to partner with it and sort of run be more involved in its operations, and ultimately would acquire it sort of formally and roll it in. And over the last year, we've really started to grow, but even before that, and even a little bit during, we've also kind of paused its growth a little bit, maybe more than we could have or should have, to again just better focus on core Cosmos R&D and open source and public goods. And so now that things are a little bit more mature, we're starting to really ramp up our development of those business units, both the security audits and the validator. So we're expanding to more networks and auditing more projects, and there's a lot of demand on both sides that that we're finally able to start servicing, and hopefully we won't have to pause again to help Cosmos. So yeah,
well, I think when you say pause, you basically like the team was more involved in giving feedback and working with the IBC and Tenerment team at Informal than actually growing the validator. I think that's what you mean.
That's right. Yeah, well, I mean, it's always a question of like, how are you allocating resources? And if you have personnel internally, and we're never sort of 100% engaged on the or 100% funded by the ICF, and so what do you do? And so we have the opportunity to expand our businesses, and the audit business is can be quite profitable, and there's a lot of demand, and it really aligns with our expertise. And so there was real opportunity for us to grow in that direction, and we wanted to grow in that direction, but there was also a lot of need on the side of Cosmos, and we have this expertise in house and people who are onboarded and can help. And so rather than sort of expanding our security audit business at the time, we sort of refocused and had them focus more on the sort of Cosmos side. And the ICF was asking us to sort of expand our resources that we're allocating to core Cosmos projects. And so we care deeply about Cosmos and about the success of Cosmos, and even at the expense of our own business interests at times. And so so we've been willing to help and to keep working on that, and like to think that Cosmos is a lot better off because we made those decisions ultimately.
So Ethan, I wanted to ask you also quite directly for our listeners. The funding of Informal from the ICS over the years, so let's say over the last 3 years, since Informal was set up, what has it been, both in terms of people covered and in terms of total amounts?
Yeah, so as we mentioned, I think in the last video, when Informal spun out, we had an investment from the ICF to the tune of $2.5 million, structured as a convertible note, so that the ICF would always have some future stake in Informal. But we also had service agreements with the ICF for all the core work we've been doing that we've been talking about here. And so in 2020, when we spun out, we were around 12 people. By the end of the year, we had grown to about almost 20 people. And in 2020, I think we received around $4.5 million for all that work. In 2021, we were encouraged to grow quite substantially, especially by the end of the year, to really start stepping up on Tenerment and Go and the Cosmos Hub. And so by the end of the year, we had around 36 people, I think, covered by the ICF work. And for that, in 2021, we received around $6 million. And the ICF that year actually started doing these atom bonuses. And so in 2021, I think we received around 40,000 atoms in addition. And then, by the end of the year, the ICF was really encouraging further growth at a lot of the core teams to bring more capacity to all the open source projects and to really help improve development and so on. And so in the first half of the year, we were growing quite a lot. By the end of the year, I think we had around maybe 45 people or so that were covered by ICF contracts over the course of 2022. And in that year, we received around 13 million from the ICF, maybe a little more, 13.4 or so. And also in terms of the atom bonuses, we had around 279,000 atoms that year. Of course, in total, Informal was around 55 people by then. And so, we had people working on other things, security audits and validator and so on. But those atom bonuses were really designed to be sort of prorated per person, working at all the core teams, and to really improve incentive alignment across all the core teams with the community and with the ICF. We've been talking about it in these videos. Informal started out as sort of pretty small development team, not really focused on the sort of core mainline of development on the Cosmos Hub pretty much at all, and over time has been asked repeatedly to step up and take more and more responsibility, and has grown to be the largest core developer in Cosmos. But to this day, only has a sort of small percentage of the total atom supply. I think it's around maybe 0.2% or even less than that of the total. And so something to keep in mind as sort of the largest core developer. There's I think everyone kind of understands that in the Cosmos ecosystem, there's still a lot left wanting in terms of incentive compatibility. Of course, there's still quite a few atoms at all in bits, and the ICF still has some treasury that it's using to fund all these things. But now that the Cosmos Hub has its own growing community pool, I think folks will be more and more looking to the Cosmos Hub to really improve the incentive alignment with its core development teams, and that's something we're looking forward to as well.
That sounds like a great goal, and that's a great way also to close this second video on Informal and fourth video in our series about the Cosmos history. Thank you, Ethan, for answering my question today. Some of them were a bit tougher than others. I think you did great. And
Thanks,
I'll see you for the Cosmos Hub video. That is the last one that we planned out.
Sounds good. We'll see you next time.